So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline Comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the delay in getting started tonight. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we managed to iron it out.
It's not Wednesday without a technical difficulty.
Oh, God. Isn't that the truth? I want to thank Mickey Clausen and Roberta Conroy for joining us tonight because we are going to be talking about coloring comics, and Martin obviously is a regular, and that's what he does for a living. So I'm going to be picking you guys' brains tonight.
Okay. So, well, doesn't Roberta color stuff too?
Yeah,
that's what I said. I'm glad Mickey and Roberta joined us. And you're.
I didn't hear Roberta.
Come on, catch up.
Yeah,
come on, catch up.
I heard her say my name.
I don't know if I do this for a living, but.
All right, I want you guys to see this.
Look what you found.
What? Oh wow, oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah.
How cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
neat.
worked on a while back.
Yeah, this is from. This is from Nexus.
That's Mike Barron, yes.
Yes, Mike Barron and Steve Rude. This is Steve Rude's artwork. And Les Dorscheid was the colorist on this, and he used to live a block away from me. So wow. I managed to pick his brains way back when. I tried to find the piece that I colored way back when, but just like this, not on Nexus. But for some reason, I saw it the other day, and you think I could find it today when I was trying to find research? Nope. But this is how coloring used to be done. Have any of you colorists here done the old school way?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay.
Way back in the 80s.
Yep.
So
in the 90s for me.
So I was coming into it right in the 90s, so I was still a kid then.
Right back.
Supposedly. But I didn't. So I'm trying to wrap my head around what's going on here. So you got an acetate sheet, and then you actually colored behind the acetate.
Roberta, you want to take this one? Oh, she's
She's
gonna
away
bring her.
from the table. Yeah, she walked away.
Yeah.
She's back.
Well, hi.
Roberta? Okay, try again, Barb.
All right, Roberta, would you like
Oh,
to take this?
she's
He
got
wants
one.
to know
I
how this
have
works.
one. Let's see if I can get it clear enough. And let's see. What's the problem? No, I got it because I have a blur on my background. Let's take that off. Okay, here we are. So this is the end result. They're all on the cellophane. So each plate is like they scan in the black and white art, and here it is. See if I can isolate it. You see, so this is just the black art. And they have to painstakingly put each color layer together and match it. So you remove one, and that's the blue plate is gone. So now you just have the yellow and magenta together. You remove the magenta, and that's just the yellow. So that's color on color.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
that's the
even
separations. That's the
Yeah.
final
So
separation.
that's all
Yeah.
all the color separations.
that's
So
even
Right.
before one.
that is
But-
how it's
okay,
printed
but
onto the film.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what are you showing us, Barb? What's
Right, mine only has one, and
Yeah.
it's got the acetate, the
Yeah.
clear acetate with the inks, and underneath it has been hand colored with ink, probably Doc Martens inks
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
on
Cool.
blue lines. See what
Yeah,
they did.
P.H.
What they did
Martins.
was, Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And see,
Okay,
my
okay,
first
okay.
job with Blackthorn. My first job with Blackthorn was like that. They sent me one of those, and I airbrushed with P.H. Martin ink on the. It's like a film, and then people used to use marker colors on it, but when I started, I was airbrushing, so I airbrushed right on it, and then you sent that with the black overlay to the publisher, and then they got it to the printers.
Now, can you explain? I know how because I've done it, but can you explain how you got the blue lines?
Well, I got it from the publisher. They did a photostat of it, of the black line art, and then just sent it on the film with the black overlay, and then we colored on the film underneath the black overlay.
Correct, but didn't you have blue lines on the underside? See how
Yeah.
this is?
Yeah, they just printed it real colored over
Real
it.
lightly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Right.
lightly. Yeah.
More like
it's usually on-
a light gray. And then you would
Yeah.
it would be just a line art, and then you would just color where you needed to color, because the black overlay would go back over it and block out what was the gray line art that you saw.
The way that this one was done, the way that Les used to do these is that he had a chemical process that the chemical went down on this board, and then he would lay the acetate on top. This acetate, he would lay it over top, and then he would put it under a sun lamp,
Uh-huh.
and then the sun lamp would bring up the blue, or block out anything underneath the black acetate would turn blue, so that when you picked up the acetate, then you were left with the blue lines underneath.
That's like the old blueprint process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a chemical they put on there, and then it can't be exposed to light, because once you expose it to light, it all washes away.
Disappears.
Yeah, it alters it. Yep.
Right. And so the only time that I ever did that, I went down and picked his brains. He gave me all the equipment that I needed. I did not have a sun lamp though, so I actually took him outside and laid him on the grass.
That's great.
That's
That works.
cool.
It worked. All right.
then-
I just thought
then
we'd.
So,
Yeah, I used
So
to
I
work
s-
at a printer that did the scanning of things like that, and you would put it. They had this huge room that was essentially a camera, and one side of the room was a vacuum, a table, and it swiveled like that, and you'd swivel it flat, raise up the glass, place your artwork under it, push it down, and then they'd pull a vacuum so it was completely tight, and they'd shift it back, and you would step out and you'd take a photograph of that with different filters to filter out each color. So that's how they separated it into the individual colors that Roberta's talking about. That's how that was done. Now it's all done with computers. But in those days, you had to do it with this huge room-sized camera that they put filters around, and each filter had to be altered. It had to be angled slightly, so that if you had any dot patterns, they wouldn't. You know what a moire pattern is, where you get dots, you get dots that line up weird, and it does these really op art type of things with it. You had to be careful that did not happen. So they had special angles that each color was taken at to keep that from happening. So that's how coloring used to be done.
Right. So I thought I'd start out our
See,
program.
it's all fascinating to me because this 4-color process was the very beginning of my coloring.
So you were
I was
you
a
were
painter
just on the
before
tail
that.
end. You were on the tail end of all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we'd start off tonight by showing the old-fashioned way before we jumped into how it's done today. I just wanted to show people a peek of days gone past.
Yeah, well, I can also comment on that a little bit because I jumped in on the tail end of the old process, and I guess I would have been jumping into the new process because computers all kind of boomed into the early 90s, and they started appearing everywhere, and it just kind of that's where it took me to. So I ended up initially studying that old school color method, and then the computers kind of said, well, why even bother? Because they're here. So I was like, all right, so I didn't even have to do that. So I ended up, being able to jump ahead. But I work at a printing company, and we still have printers that still do the old school process as well. So we have digital printers. We have digital printers, and then we have letterpress, and the letterpress are still. And then some of the letterpress uses more modern techniques as well, but then there's still other ones that still use the old school techniques. So it's interesting to see that.
And if you want to go even further back before the process we just talked about, there was a process before that where the colorist actually didn't do the actual coloring. It wasn't scanned like I talked about. What they would do was that the colorist would use those Dr. Martin dyes on a photocopy of the page, indicating the breakdown of colors, and someone would have to go cut a dot screen for each of those different colors.
Right.
So the colorist actually didn't just color it. He actually had to know, okay, what's the numbers for each color had a different number setting. There was a number setting for black, for yellow, for blue and red. And each one of those had a percentage that you could use. And they would cut a screen at that percentage to put. It was a very labor intensive process. That was before this process that we talked about before. That was done back in the 30s through the 70s or 80s, and then they started using different process.
In that process, they had a lot less colors that were available to be printed because of that. You had
a limited number of colors that you could use. Yeah, whereas now it's whatever the computer can handle. So
now, out of curiosity, so. That sort of old school stuff I think was still floating around in the 80s. But when you start getting into like colors in a painterly style, like with, let's say, maybe the stuff that Lynn Varley was doing for Frank Miller stuff. What's going on, or even like something like Electra Assassin, like. That's kind of in the mid 80s. What process do they do photos?
I think they probably were using that scanning process that I was talking about earlier, where they actually made copies of the artwork and then they colored on on that artwork. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my guess. That's my educated guess as to how it was done. So
I have, getting back on
Uh-oh.
track here, I have a
Uh-oh.
series of 12 questions for our colorists.
Okay,
Oh wow. Okay.
that's
Yep.
what I came for. I'm here for the lesson.
I know. Lessons are good.
Yep, it is. And each of you, Mickey and Martin and Roberta, I hope to hear interesting answers from you, because I am a colorist, but I've only been doing it for a few years, and I am an amateur. I consider, even though I'm coloring professionally, I'm still an amateur. So I'm constantly looking to learn. My first question for you guys is, what's the first thing you do when you get a script?
Ignore it.
Now that explains a lot.
I'll take that. I look for time of day. That's the first thing I go through it. I look at set and time.
Yeah.
Do you make notes on the script?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that I know where I am, and I have a basic understanding of if we've used that location before to go back to for reference.
Yeah. I do a cursory read of the script to see what's going on, and then hopefully there's time of day indicated in the script. If there is no time of day in the script, then I guess. Let's just hope for the best. It's like, and a lot of times, if the artist has done their job right, then I can kind of get a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, writers out there, please give us times of day in the script, or the mood, or even if you don't want to give us a time of day, give us the mood that you want.
Correct.
Because that would help a lot.
Mickey, do you write?
Same thing. Yeah, I go to find out what time of day, and even when I'm coloring the pages, I have the script up on another monitor, double checking, make sure time of day. Looking for the mood of what's going on with the people and their emotions, what they're saying. You know, if they're angry, mad, you can bring that out with color. So yeah, I just gotta constantly check them. And then, like I say, like Roberta said, I keep extra pages open on another monitor that I did before. Match the color moods and everything that's going on.
Since I write and ink and color my own book, I all have it all in my head.
Yeah, you know what's happening already.
Yes.
Well, see, that's the thing, is a colorist is in a vacuum.
Yes.
It depends on the clarity of the people before.
Yes, I do color other stuff too. Second question, who wants to explain to our audience out there what flatting is?
Oh dear, no.
I can do it in 2 seconds. I can do it in 2 seconds.
I'm using my own device here.
You're observing the artwork. You're looking at the borders of the backgrounds so that you can absolutely have every background and every character with a single flat color that you can select quickly.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, so the process of flatting can be really annoying because depending on how you do it, if you want to do it right, you kind of got to select everything, the areas that you want to fill in. Now, if you got somebody who has really, really detailed art,
it's harder.
It's really tough. If you have somebody with simpler art, it's really easy. If you use Clip Studio Paint, their fill tool is absolutely fantastic. So, but if you use Photoshop, then you got to use different methods. But yeah, basically you put a flat color everywhere that you want to have
It's
that's a
the
lot
base
logical
color
place.
of each object or
Yeah.
person
Yes,
or whatever.
the base.
Right?
There you go. The
It's
base color of each object. Yeah.
That's the base color. Yeah.
Yep. In this page here, this is the base color. It's a sunset, so I pick sunset colors for the background. And when I go in and add the details, I will add the darker shades and blues and stuff to the faces. But
Yep.
right now, this is just the base color that I'm starting with.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a couple of ways of doing this too. I hope I'm not jumping in and interrupting. I apologize if I did. But so there's a couple of ways you can do this. Some colorists say, give me the ugliest colors you possibly can, but make sure everything is distinct. So then that way they aren't affected by somebody else's color choices. Other guys say, okay, here's the color palette that I want you to drop on each of these characters. And then they get the base color palette for each character, and then they say do whatever you want for the backgrounds. And so if you have the base color for each character, then you can alter it as you go. But you always have that root color on the characters. That's always going to be your starting point, keeping them consistent.
Yeah.
So that's another way of doing it. Another way of doing it is kind of getting the general gist of what you want. Okay, this is a sunset, so we're going to have a sunset colors, and we're going to put all the colors that are going to be flats in that kind of direction. Yeah.
David says, I make my color layer. Once all flatted, I duplicate it, then start rendering after copy is made.
I do the same thing.
Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of you block out your pages like this? This is hang on just a second. This is
that's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is this guy. He blocks his colors out all the way through, so he has a color scheme.
Yep.
Before he starts to render, and he does it.
Yep.
He does it without the blacks, so that he can see where his color scheme. And here's another one of his.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys?
I've been doing that on the most recent version of Wolf Hunter. I've been putting in through the.
So you're blocking out your colors.
Yeah. Or yeah. So.
I find that really helpful, especially when you can see the direction that the story's going, so that it's not jarring.
Seeing it like this is like, wow, yeah, I can see the flow.
Yeah. So the thing that you can do there is if you like, let's say you wanted to play with your color palette through the comic, you can kind of tint it, right? You could start with a certain shade at the start, and then you can tint it all the way through and have a uniform flow go through the book. So you can end up having an interesting dynamic. There's one thing I want to try at one time. I'll see if I can on a future book. I would like to start with the first panel with one shade of, let's say, red, and by the end of the book, you have a different shade of red, but each panel would be a shade.
Would be changing it in one direction or another. That's interesting.
David says, I flatted all and pages open and flip through them for flow. I flat all my stuff, the entire book first as well.
Yeah, I do too. I think I have to do that in order to make decisions on what I make as a color guide.
And that brings up my next question. Do you guys, what is the difference between a color palette and a mood board?
Ooh. Yeah, okay. So mood board, I think for me would be just like just the general gist of what you're going for. Whereas the color palette itself would be based off the mood board. So the mood board kind of gives you like, okay, I want kind of browns, or I want kind of yellows and reds, but then the color palette would then start being more specific. So then,
Mickey?
like, what are my contrast colors?
Mickey, do you have a definition between mood board and color palette?
Not really. I tend to go with try to be more realistic colors. Again, it depends on the mood, time of day. Like night ones, sometimes I put a purple overlay over the whole page.
Ooh.
And then it gives a nightish light purple over everything. And then certain things where I want the people to show out the color, I'll mask it and then erase the purple from part of the people. So they show up brighter than the background.
Oh, that's good idea.
And so I put different color overlays depending on the mood, and then erase them where I don't want the mood to show through. Let some of the flesh color and stuff show through, brighter colors.
That's an awesome
Or I guess
idea.
put the background back behind the people to pop the people out a little bit more.
How about you, Roberta? Do you have a color scheme
So-
versus mood board?
So I don't like mood boards per se, so that's why I'm going to define this nicely. I like a color palette where I know the range of colors and the exact colors I'm going to use to mark each level within the background and the foreground. And a mood board would be an overall, it's kind of, I think, a simplification of the range of colors. So I think it's too small and I need more detail to really make a palette that works together. A mood board would be just too random and it would give you a feeling, but it dials everything down. And I think we don't need to do that because we do have one job in coloring that I think is really important, and that's to decide where the action is and where to go. And the color decides that. And if everything is so muted because it's all in one particular color scheme, which a mood board would do, you lose focus.
Good answer. Good
It'd be
answer.
great for something like a flashback or, something that is a little dreamy.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good point. Do you guys work from background to foreground or vice versa? Or do you do the figures first and then the rest? How do you work?
That's a good question.
Everything.
I've done both. I think I don't have, it really depends on the art, because some art, it's better one way or the other.
Yeah.
I always have to flat with the background, and sometimes if I render the background, it inspires me, but I think more often than not, I end up doing the figures.
So you start with the figures and then build the background after you've done the figures.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I go both directions, and sometimes I just do everything ad hoc. Just like, whatever. Let's just try. So now I might. No, Roberta, you said you were a painter before you started comic book stuff.
Right.
Okay, so now here's the thing that's intriguing is so you guys all have like years of industry experience, and I don't. I've done some stuff here and there, but I kind of wing it, to tell you the truth. And so I also have an art background, so I bring a lot of my painterly style or approach into doing stuff. So sometimes I don't even flat. I just go straight into like painting, right? Because I'm like, right. So
Can I tell you what the flatting is good for?
Oh yeah.
It's good for changing things.
Oh yes, absolutely, 100%.
You're like,
yes.
Oh, you know what? I want to change the background. Then you can isolate the background. So. Yep.
And then if you need to do a mass delete or whatever, then you can delete that out and then replace. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, flatting definitely has its benefits. So.
How about you, Mickey? Do you work backwards to forward, background, or do you do the figures first? How do you work?
Well, I flat the whole page. and I mainly, I guess, start with the main interest of the characters first, and then I kind of try to push the back of the people. So I kind of jump back and forth depending, and since I got like Roberta has a flats, you can change the background, hue, saturation, everything quickly just by selecting it, and just adjusting the hue, the darkness, the lightness, and everything. So
Yep. I start with the figures first. And my first layers are the people. First layer is always skin. Second layer is like hair, and third layer is clothing, whatever. And then I will, my lowest level will be my backgrounds, so I can mess with those.
Now, sometimes I will put what I would call a base layer down. So I put a base layer down as my base color that I want for the entire panel, and then I build off a top, and I build everything on top of that, and I let that shine through a little bit. So sometimes you can do that by just like changing the opacity of the layer above, and then you let that yellow or red or whatever it is come through the colors. So just that kind of unifies everything.
I see you guys are giving me all kinds of ideas, which is good. This is why I'm picking your brains.
So I play with layers a lot.
See, I had an ulterior motive for this subject tonight. It's because I'm learning from you guys. You're teaching me.
I work kind of different. I don't put like the people background, midground on different layers. It's all on the same layer.
Really?
Yeah, I got like the whole page flatted, and then I make a duplicate of the flats, and then I just select the colors and do the highlights. I make a highlight layer and a shadow layer above the base colors and put a mask on it. And then I use a mask, and I can, just by selecting a color, I can, lighten the highlights to it. So it's all on, it's just the highlights and shadows on a different layer.
I use a lot of clipping
the
masks.
shadows are, the shadows are on multiply highlights on screen. And then on top of that, I have a 50% shadow layer and then 100% highlight layer.
Cool. Yes, I do clipping masks.
That's a fun way to do it.
Yeah.
So when you say 100%, highlight layers, so your highlight, what is your layer setting on that? So it's the layer at 100% and on overlay?
No, just on normal.
Oh, normal. Oh, okay. So, normal, and then you do like a hard color.
Well, the highlight 100 is on screen, but it's 100%.
Oh, on screen. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
The other highlight layer that is a duplicate of the flats, I duplicate the color layer that I have and turn it to multiply and then put a mask on it. Then I duplicate that layer, turn it to screen, and name it highlights. And that's the color that I have already selected for everybody. And then the other two layers on top are to darken shadows in certain places, stuff like that, and highlight certain other areas with a brighter color.
Cool. Okay. If you had to choose your favorite type of coloring, would you go with a bright, bold color like this or this? Or do you prefer subtle and muted colors like this or this?
For me, a lot would be depending on what the mood of the book is.
Well, I know. I mean, I'm asking you, if you had your choice, what do you prefer to work in? Do you prefer to work in bold, bright colors, or do you prefer to work in muted tones? If it was your book.
That's kind of, well, the one I'm doing with my granddaughter, Tales of the Goat Eye, it's more animated cartoon look, so I go with bright colors. I'm also doing a book called SEAL Team 1, and that one's a little more gritty in that, so I've got a little more muted colors than I do bright because of the mood of the book. So
But do you like that more? Would you say you like that more though, Mickey, or no?
No, but that's the job. He, the artist I'm working with, he wants a more moodier book, so that's what he gets.
Well, so if you would like, I can show you. what I do.
Hmm.
Yeah, hang on. Let me. This, by the way, that's up here. This is kind of what I prefer. I prefer muted with splashes of bold color to stick something out, to make something pop. So go
All
ahead,
right.
Martin.
So where would this fall?
I think it's pretty
Both.
bold.
Yeah, it's bold. It's definitely bold.
So
Especially that pink. Whoa, that pink is really bright.
yeah, so this is an interesting page because I ended up incorporating like the sunrise into the whole page.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we start with the kind of like sepia, I don't know if that's sepia, but kind of like, and then we run into the colors in action, and then we go and boom. So yeah, so that's an approach.
How about you, Roberta?
Yeah, I think I like to have some kind of a mix of mood that has a muted aspect to it, but I don't generally like it to be completely muted. So I'm more leaning towards a variety of color being part of it because it's more expressive. There's a place for muted colors, I think, but I think I'd rather not have that be the entire book.
Yeah.
You know?
So one thing to keep in mind, and this is for keeping your colors bright, even if they're mute. There's a certain layer or a certain level of color into the black or into the dark that you don't want to go beyond. So if you actually kind of try and stay above the 50% range in the
you can go
in your color palette, then you can keep your colors brighter even if they're mute.
Well, the other thing is that you can actually take away the black and make every color.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and that does a lot better.
Yeah. So when coloring computer coloring took off in the 90s, a lot of the early books were too dark because they were picking colors that were in the too dark of a range, and it didn't go well onto the paper. So yeah, so you got to kind of keep your. So the interesting thing is you can actually if you make your darkest color at like a 50% and everything on top of it is lighter than that. It's very interesting some of the techniques that you can come up with in order to sell darkness.
Those are cool pages, Mickey.
So yeah,
very cool.
The one on the left is my granddaughter's book, and the one on the right's Navy SEAL Team book.
I like it.
Colors are different.
Interesting.
Different coloring techniques. Okie doke. On to the next question.
Can I put an add-on for what Martin was talking about? Is, you really do have an ability to separate those colors better through just color range. Like if you have a light next to a dark, that's one way of separating. But if you have a cool next to a warm, that's a much better way. So you don't have to go to the black to make it darker. You could go to the blue.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. All right. What kind of color treatments do you guys like? I don't know if this doesn't show up very well. That's
that's mine. That's funny.
This is one of the examples I show. You don't see it very well, but the brick wall is very textured. Can
you zoom in on that, or?
I can't, unfortunately.
Oh.
I have another one that I can show here. This is very airbrushed. This is an airbrush look, and the texture on her wall was. Here's another one that has a lot of texture on it. Yeah. What do you guys like to do to get texture? Do you like to dry brush, watercolor, flat shades, gradients, airbrushes, textures like stipples? How do you guys like to add pizzazz to your pages?
I tend to lean towards the watercolors myself, because it adds a little bit of like fluidity. But over rendering is in
Watercolors.
comics. I have a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah,
Because
this is
some
very,
guys
very
do
rendered.
really excellent rendering, and then other guys kind of do it, but then it looks like it just doesn't fit the line art, and you're kind of like, I don't.
Oh, no, that was not the one I want. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I don't
this
know.
is really super rendered and realistic.
Like so to me, I mean, it's great art, but to me that background like pulls me out of the comic. But that's me. I don't know. Other people might love it. But again, but there's other comics where like it's highly realistic, but it's highly realistic all the way through, and then I'm okay with it. So I don't know. It's a tough call.
The sky on this one is gorgeous. It looks watercolored.
Yeah, thank you. It's just drawn.
It's a lovely, lovely texture, and you can't see it up close, but I think you're using a faint stipple pattern on the bricks, which is something that I do. I use a stipple a lot.
So
slightly...
I made a brush that has a stippling in it. I just drew, and then I create a brush from that, and I use that brush on the corners of the brick.
I didn't even realize this was yours, by the way, when I picked it.
Well, it's a. Let's see if I can share that.
Hang on here.
Yeah. All right. So, can you see that?
Hang on. There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
So that is just a stipple brush on the sides, and the top, and it gave it just a little more feeling, I think.
Gave it texture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it too weird, so like I gave it a nice gradient to push it back. I made the colors pop by making a different color for the mortar.
All of these samples that I'm showing you guys, I'm pulling them out of my reference folder. So apparently, Roberta,
yeah,
I have one of your pages in my reference folder.
Okay, that's okay. So this was just painting because I wanted something cloud-like without it being cloud-shaped, So I thought on this one it was all mood, and I wanted that red brick to at least as far as catching the eye. I wanted the sword and the blood and the cat.
It's stunning.
And that I wish had gone a little further, because I would have put a little bit more, done a little more to the background, I think, to brighten a little bit. So I feel like it got a little too muted.
I don't think so. I like it just the way it is.
Thank you.
I have it in my reference folder when I'm looking for something color-wise. I have a reference folder, and it was in there.
Well, thank you. Awesome.
Now, you guys
Jeff Whiting's inks?
Nice job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you guys do your shading, do you prefer a blended shading technique like this, as you can see, it's airbrushed, or do you prefer a hard delineation like this for your shadows? I have a tendency to airbrush my shadows. I know a lot of people really like this look here, which is a hard line delineation between your colors, your blended or hard edge.
I think I lean towards the hard edge myself. partly because I just suck at airbrush stuff. So just so I
Work to your
I
strengths,
really
right? Right.
yeah. So I don't I want I'm trying I don't want to be a
Just
what's it
spit it
called?
out.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not trying to brag, but I think I'm really good at picking out colors that are good contrasting colors beside each other, and then they just add punch.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to have hard colors beside each other. I've been doing a little bit of blending because I've been adding a watercolor layer for shadows and stuff, and sometimes the watercolor is just a little bit too sloppy. So then what I do is I just blend it out a little bit, but it doesn't look like the airbrush approach.
How about you, Mickey?
I've tried it.
Do you like the airbrush look to blend your shadows, or do you like a hard edge delineation like this?
I started as an airbrush artist coloring, so I tend more towards the airbrush look.
That's what I
But
do,
again,
too.
a lot of it depends on my clients. I've had some people, they don't like the airbrush look. They want the clean cut anime look. And so I now that I've been doing more anime, like what my granddaughter's doing, I kind of like that more. I can do it a little quicker. But yeah, I started more than I actually airbrush was how I first started coloring. So
It's a
I like that
Floramonte
color.
flyby. Howdy, y'all.
Hey.
What y'all talking about? Coloring techniques. That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting lessons on coloring. And you, Roberta?
I started out with the airbrushing technique, but I'd have to say that I see an awful lot of my work combining the two. So
Oh.
That's where I'm
maybe
at.
more on faces and things that are, a little bit more prominent in the scene. I would put a little bit more of the airbrushing blending in there to soften. But background figures, I love having sharper, harder edges. And with rim lighting, I love having harder edges. So like, in this page is a beautiful example of that. It's just, there's really harsh lighting
Mhm,
and that has its own mood,
mhm.
with it. So yeah, I'd like to say more hard with some airbrushing is better. I don't like doing an entirely soft book. I think.
Yeah.
Now here's a tough
I
one.
have a soft spot for the old school comics, where the four color process and where they had the hard lines and the dot patterns and everything like that. It just that screams comics to me. And when
Yep.
you get too soft, then it starts getting a little bit mushy, and then it's like, yeah, it's pretty, but it just doesn't stick out.
Mine's somewhere in between.
But that's me.
Now here's a tough one, you guys. What do you do with a very busy, highly detailed page or panel so that the main focus does not become lost?
Oh, I can answer that really quickly.
This is George
If
Perez.
you want. You do not render half of what's on it.
Yep.
You decide what's important, put the details, and you use two things on a busy page. One is completely opposite colors on your character versus your background. And two, look where you're going to draw your eye and put your colors there. And put your detail there. And analogous colors work best. Just have one palette for the background and don't just hint at the shapes. Like one airbrush across the top where the light would fall is it,
Mm-hmm.
So you don't actually change the color to everything, but just keep places to make you feel like it's real. But I mute it down quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, one technique that I've been doing, I don't know if it's a cheat or not, but I do it. Is what you can do is you can kind of do So let's say on this top panel here, what you can do is you can put your base color down, and then what you do is you take put a layer on top, and you put a gradient from the bottom, and then you have the lighter part to focus the person in the middle, and you make it darker on the edges, and that gradient automatically adds life to the page, and then you don't have to actually render as much, and then you can just go and render the important bits, and the gradient takes care of the rest. It's a very subtle thing, but it works.
How about you, Mickey? Do you see this page here?
Yeah.
This is a George Perez page. How would you tackle this?
Probably like Roberta, but the back characters, I would highlight the main characters. The characters around the side, I'd probably flat them all with regular colors and stuff, but I'd put a color overlay over just those characters to push them back, to bring the people forward. And then I might even do a color hold on some of the stuff on the side to push it more backwards, to have the black line art on the characters show up so they're more up front, and push some of the line art to the back.
That's what I have done. I have a page I just finished which has an office scene when the main character is surrounded by a whole bunch of people, his office, all the office furniture and everything like that. I did some soft palettes for everything but him. He's in a very vivid color. And then I did a color hold with a dark gray for where the black is so that they fade.
Right.
And he pops forward.
That works really well.
Yeah.
Tips and tricks. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, when you guys do your shading, your shadows and your highlights, do you use, like I said, I'm still a newbie. I only use a 3-step process. I have your base, which is your flatting. Then I have a darker shade tone and then a lighter highlight. That's it. 3.
That's fine. You could even go with 2 if you want.
Yeah, when I do my coloring, that's what I usually do. And then blend between the colors when necessary. Yeah.
Tommy likes hard-edged digital coloring with a watercolory look. That's good.
So
Yeah, those are nice.
thank you,
That's
Tommy,
fine.
that you like my stuff. Thank you so much.
No ego there.
Yeah, no,
Ego,
but that's my exact
ego
approach.
Is not
So
a bad thing, by the way.
yeah, no, so that's my exact approach. So I appreciate that.
You're saying that more than 3 colors is just unnecessary.
If it's a very large character that takes up like a quarter of the page, maybe you can have more detail going
You're
on.
talking about values more than color. So you're taking one color and you're using a darker value and a lighter value to give it 3-dimensionality, right? Is that what am I saying that right?
I don't. Yeah. If I as Roberta says, if I have a larger piece, then I will use more values. But for your regular old panel, I find that 3 colors is all you need.
And if that's working, it's like anything with storytelling, over rendering just kind of mushes it out. So keeping it fairly simple moves it right along, right? Your eye isn't lingering too long anywhere. If you get a lot of noodling, you people tend to just kind of zoom in on that. And if you're trying to tell a story and move it along, don't do the noodling.
Good point. Do you 3, Martin, Mickey, and Roberta, do you guys have any particular tricks that you use to indicate anger, sadness, action, or please, talking heads?
Talking heads.
Talking heads are tough.
Well, okay, I've got a page here that I can pop up. Let's see if I can.
Yeah, Star Trek had a lot of talking heads.
Oh, yes,
man.
they did.
Yeah. Ooh. So I had to learn how to keep it interesting. Wally Wood's lazy layouts came in real handy.
22 panels that always work. I actually have that right
Mhm.
here.
All right, so I've got a page here that I can show that's kind of. Let's see. I need to stop sharing, and then we need to share again. Present. Share screen. Where is it? Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. And there you go. Okay, so this is so this is
Cool.
exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
So the top is kind of moody with a kind of a darkish gray bluish color. Now technique I actually did for this page, interestingly enough, this whole book I did with digital oil pastels. So yeah, so it ended up having a very interesting. So if you
It's nice.
So give it a
Texture
texture.
inside of everything.
you get this kind of whoops.
Yeah,
Very
that
textured.
shows it. That
Yeah.
shows it. No, that shows it. That's
Yeah.
exactly what. Yeah.
So you
It's
got
very
this
pixelated,
subtle
but yeah.
texture happening, and you got this interesting
Yeah,
So
almost kind
it's
of
very-
watercolory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but then for mood, so here we have it. So this is where the script was important, right? So I read the script, and then it says, well, okay, then he has this episode where he doesn't know what's going on with him. So then I changed the whole entire panel to kind of like this red tone, right? And so
Mhm.
so if you want to do an emphasis on something, you can block out, one place where you're going to be like, okay, let's change the color here, and it adds impact to the entire page. So if you actually read the first Wolf Hunter book, this red panel appears throughout the book, all over the place when he has certain moods, and then I made the panel more red. So that's a technique that you can do stuff with.
How do you approach action panels? Do you throw in more vibrant colors?
Yeah.
Reds, yellows, oranges?
Yeah. So actually, let's see. I'll pop open another page here. Let's see. Action panel. Yeah. Okay. Let's open that. Open with. You guys see that?
Oh, hang on.
We see
Well,
Mickey.
Mickey.
Yep, there it is.
Oh, there we go. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So
That's
here
exciting.
we
Wow,
just
that's
kind of really push the color. I threw an overlay on there, and then I kind of just really so you end up having but you can go all sorts of different directions with that, right? So I mean, you could have done this with blues, or could have done this with greens, just But here I decided to go with more of yellows and reds to add that punch.
But this doesn't answer the talking heads question.
The talking heads. Talking heads. Here we go. I got talking heads too. Open with. If you have examples, Roberta, by all means.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So here's the talking heads. But again, I threw in a panel to add the red.
Just to break up the page so that it's not all so boring.
Yeah. So it's not so boring and stuff. And then this guy here, I made his skin tone kind of like more pasty white because he's like a, creepy guy.
Yeah, I use different skin tones for all my characters. No one size does not fit all.
So yeah.
So let's see.
Well, okay. While you're looking for that, we're going to go show more of.
That's looking
Mickey's
really
ready?
good, Mickey.
Yep, ready.
Okay. So there's this one. Does it show up? there. So this is a talking heads. I'd say there's nothing
got some
going
nice-
on but conversation. So I threw a really bright color wall behind the butler, and just gave them interesting color outfit, I think, to kind of keep them together so that you're watching them throughout. So I really didn't feel like, without the little orange wall back there, it was a lot less going on. So it's like a little tiny thing sometimes will
Subtlety.
just
You did the same
pull
thing
you.
that Martin did. He threw in one panel that had a bright pop of color.
Mm-hmm. And that's right at the top, right where you're getting your interest. And it
Mhm.
keeps you, going through the rest of the talking, because there's a lot of talking there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
How about you, Mickey?
I mean-
Do you have any tricks that you use to plump up bring some interest into a talking head page?
We haven't had to do any of those. Most of the ones I have are in talking head.
Yeah.
But
you
yeah,
worked
I
on
probably put in a lot
Rim.
of
R.A.
shadow.
Jones didn't do a lot of that. No.
Yeah. So, and my granddaughter doesn't do much of that. Well, she does, but the shadow areas I do mainly like 3 different colors: the shadow, the base, and the highlights. So sometimes I mix with the brush depending on, again, the client I have and the look they want. But it's mainly the 3: the base, the highlights, and the shadows on them. And then again, depending on the mood of the page, nighttime, seeing everything, different colors, maybe a purple overlay.
What do you
let's
do
see.
to make
Let me
a
look
talking head page pop?
Trying to think if I did one just the other day for one of my clients.
Oh, I
mean,
got one more for you.
Okay. Go for it. He's finding this page here. I do kind of the same. I try to throw in at least one panel that's got some drama. Here's
Mhm.
Roberta's talking
So-
head
Yeah,
page.
so
Here's talking head page. So again, I just really bright middle panel. Nice green plant to like start you off, because it just gets you going with the scoop shape that we have there. I wanted to have some kind of central color.
Mhm.
And then I just put a very bright light on the middle, that second guy.
Rim light.
So yeah, well, so most of his face is in shadow on one side. Just give it some kind of variety between the 3 panels of faces.
I like the rim light on the panel with the yellow curtains.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Makes it very interesting.
yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
put texture on the wall on the final panel,
Yes.
just to kind of give it something different.
And then we have Mickey here. He's got a talking head page. Although that's got
Kind of.
some action in it. So it's
No,
got
there's
something
action.
So like on this one lower left, I added some purple overlay on it to add some purple to his face. It's supposed to be nighttime fighting zombies and stuff. So
Oh yeah, you gotta have purple if you got zombies. Purple and gray.
Absolutely.
That's not a talking head page.
like I said, I don't get many clients that have that. Most of the stuff is action, and they don't do a lot of faces. It's shoot them up and stuff. And
All right. Well, I got another talking head page. If you want,
Mm-hmm.
present. Let's see. Share screen. There we go. Allow. Oh no, not that. Whoops.
Already been there, done that one.
Yeah. Let's see. Where is it? What? Why aren't? It's not giving me the option. Why?
We can go to the last question.
All right, go ahead.
Last question.
All right. Last question of the night. What are your pet peeves about coloring? I.e., script not indicating the time of day, stuff like that. Pet peeves.
That would be it. Not the time of day. I've done a few pages before, and then the publisher or editor comes back and says, "Oh, it was supposed to be night." You know, and it's like, didn't indicate
tell
that.
me that.
It looked like a day scene to me.
Well,
Yeah, if you don't indicate it in the script, how am I supposed to know?
Yeah. So, Mickey, this is how you solve it. You throw that purple overlay on.
That's what I do. Exactly what I do. Throw an overlay on.
There you go.
Yeah, like, oh, okay, no problem. Purple overlay, done.
As
Just
a
like that.
penciler, what is it about? What about art drives you crazy? What is it? You know, lots of detail. What is it that drives you crazy about what pencil artists do? Just
The pencil artists? Well,
yeah. What do we do that drives you absolutely crazy?
well, it's not necessarily I mean, it's after the inker gets to us. So,
Well, yeah, but the storytelling and how much detail there is, it usually starts with the penciler. So you know.
yeah, well, okay, well, if there's excessive detail, then
Okay, so
that-
what's
that can-
excessive?
that-
Yes.
Jeff Darrow. Jeff Darrow is
I say,
insane.
I say,
Oh, okay,
you know,
yeah.
you want to have enough room to color so that
Yeah.
there's not so little space within the character that you can't have any texture or any variety of color before it, you know, it's gone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, okay. So here's one, okay, so something like tree leaves, right? You can go to one extreme. You can go to one extreme where it's like over rendered and there's like every single vein in the leaves and every single detail that's there and every little like nook and cranny, and then they decide to stack them on top of each other, and you're like, how do I like? You don't even know where to start. Like, how do you color it? Like, and like if you just do it as like a solid block, well, then that just kind of makes it all kind of like flat. And then if you try to render it, you're like, what do I do? But then you got the other extreme where the person does the leaves, but then they don't close anything. So you don't know where one thing starts and one thing ends.
Right.
And you're like,
So you have
like,
to make it up on. You have to make it up.
yeah.
on the
So
top.
then you're kind of trying to guess the shape that they tried to indicate. And then the other pet peeve that I have is not closed lines. So if the lines are kind of like
Indicated.
nebulous, and you're like, but you didn't close the hand. I don't know what I'm supposed to like. Where does the color go here? And so like if you're like so sometimes that happens. So those would be my two pet peeves: either too much detail,
shapes that are just
too little.
suggested.
or things that are too suggestive. Like, so there's a happy medium in between. But I mean, like, if you have hands, close the hands. If you have like certain things that need to be closed, it, because otherwise the colors sometimes don't lock it.
In other words, when you're doing lines, you don't leave them like this.
That's right.
Leave them like that.
Yeah.
Close the lines.
Yeah.
It can complete the shape. Don't leave it open or a big gap where you've got to figure out where does the color go here. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a program that does my flats automatically.
Yeah.
And if the lines aren't closed, then sections that are next to each other, it makes them the same color. So then it takes longer to separate the flats. But yeah, the program I got out, if the lines are all closed, it'll just flat the whole thing.
Yeah, that drives me crazy about my own work when I'm coloring. What I will do is I'll go in with the magic wand and select an area, and if that area isn't closed, it'll get that area and the one next to it. Yes.
Yeah,
So
that's why I select it all myself.
Yep.
I'm up against the clock here, guys. So I wanted to say I gotta bail, but glad I got your
Okay.
last
Yeah, we're-
question.
I'm so glad you could
We're
come
overtime
on,
anyway,
Roberta.
so
Thank you, Roberta.
Yeah.
It was good to
Thanks
see
so
you.
much for asking.
Great lesson.
Great to
Thank
be
you.
here. Awesome. Yeah, it was really interesting. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, and look at this. We've got some.
Yeah, look at that. You know what's
That's
really
looking
funny is the
good.
reference I
It
used
look
for
the
that
same
for that
on
wagon.
the monitor
The
that it
wagon's
does on
yellow.
that one. That looked like pretty bright on the truck on the carriage, because on my other
Yeah.
screen, this one, it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
It's the
so my
gamut.
drama monitor, the camera's right there, so the lighting's kind of off. So it
Oh,
looks
okay.
really bright. But it's
Looks a little
actually-
washed out, but it was
Yeah,
much richer there. Yeah.
See there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
This is the top secret project that Rob and Mickey and I are working on.
Yeah, and
Right.
funny thing. Here's the reference I used for that.
I should ask you for that instead of saying, "Where's the cross trees? Where's the traces go?"
Yeah,
A friend of mine,
yeah.
Rob, noticed on the stagecoach, a friend of mine was in town, and he looked at it and he goes, "Why is the front wheel smaller than the back wheel?" And I told him I had the same thing, but when I was researching colors for carriages, and I showed him on the other screen the research and stuff, and all the coaches had a smaller front wheel.
Exactly. Yep.
Because I told
I
him
used to-
that's why it's
Yep.
that way, because this guy's doing his research.
And I have, if you can show that, here's the wagon, which is interesting, the colors you pick, because it's not like, see, that's it when it's yellow and black, but I left it open so you could play with it and use whatever colors you wanted.
Well, if you want
But
yellow,
yeah,
I saw red
No,
ones
no.
and I saw yellow ones. And
No, it does not.
But-
It does not matter. I saw a lot of yellow and black ones, but no, I left it open. Otherwise, I'd have made it all black up here. I didn't darken it in. But yeah, the wheels are smaller in the front.
Yeah.
I guess that's to give them more room to turn. Is probably one of the reasons they do that. But yeah. But yes, that's
So,
seeing it
quick
red,
curiosity, Rob,
yeah.
did you hand draw that whole thing?
Oh Lord, no.
Oh, okay.
It's
Because
the
it's
size of that
spectacular.
paper that I held up. That's the
Yeah,
size of that. Yeah, that's the size of the panel. I used
Okay.
I used my light table.
Okay. Yeah.
I cheat.
No, but it was a beautiful cheat. It was very well done.
Well, that's
So-
the idea. You know, if you're trying to do something that's real,
Yeah.
you want to use a really good reference, and if you could find a good photo that's going to show it the way you want to, blow it
Yeah.
to the right size, print it out, and put it on your light table. Of course, if you're
Yeah.
doing it
Yeah, that was
digitally,
me,
you just put it on a layer underneath and you draw on top of it. So
Yeah.
it's the same
Well,
thing.
yeah, and when I was inking it, I was being a total asshole about it. I was like, "Rob, where are the horse traces? Because they need to run through a turret before they go to the
Yeah.
bits." And he was like, "What?
But you
Is it a
saw
2-horse hitch or a 4-horse hitch?
It's
Do you have
it's
a cross tree
4-horse.
or a double tree?" And we was like, I don't know."
Well, but see, I did exactly what's in the picture. So
Mhm.
but yeah, but you asked good questions. I just didn't know the answers because I'm not a horseman, which is why I use reference.
Well, I ran the traces through a turret, so
You did what you're supposed to do.
yeah. The
took it
rings
to
on top of
you added the details you knew.
Yep. The rings on top of the horses there, those are turrets, and that's what the traces run through.
Right, exactly.
So anyway, well, I think we've more than covered our time. Made up for the
There's that
7
wagon
minutes we were
again.
late.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's looking really good, Mickey. I like it.
it is.
Yeah, it's looking great.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you.
So there was a couple things that came out tonight that that we can kind of summarize. So a quick trick to make your scenes look like nighttime: throw a purple overlay on things. If
This
So-
next page, I'm going to ask for a purple overlay, Mickey.
the other thing is if you want to pop your colors, put down a base color on the back on your as your base, and then color on top of that. If you want to mix colors, an interesting technique that you can do is you put your base color down, and then what you do is you lower the opacity of the layer on top, and then you put your color and let that bottom color shine through, and then you can have a uniform look to your panel. And it also gives you some interesting techniques.
So the layer you put on top, do you use the same color as the layer on the bottom?
No.
It's kind of like what I take the base color and duplicate the layer.
Yeah.
And turn it to multiply.
Yep.
And then put a mask on it, and then I duplicate the color layer again and put screen on it for the highlights.
Yeah.
And then, with a mask, and then using the shades of gray, you can get different shades on it.
Yep. And sometimes if you don't know where to start with getting shadows and stuff onto your characters, I just throw a gradient on the panel, and that just solves a lot of the problems and automatically gives you dynamics. So that's another way to do things.
Do you guys like to know where the light source is if it's not obvious?
Yeah.
Like in notes off to the side saying, the light comes from this way. I try to do that, but unfortunately sometimes
I have a whole separate layer by itself with just red arrows on it. So
I do write in the margins, the light source is this way. And Barb caught on to that, and she actually added a little extra shading on one side of the figures to emphasize that the light's coming from a certain direction. So, it's depending on who you work with, you need to know what kind of notes you can leave, and whether they'll get from the pencil stage all the way down to the colorist or not. Because I know Barb, she doesn't work on the artwork, and she's working digitally. So perhaps what I've written there might not make it all the way. The digital inking that she's done, that's a separate layer.
If you're dropping your pencils into the Dropbox where all of us have access to, then Mickey could be looking at your pencils too.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. It's all in there. So I usually try to write little notes when I think they're necessary or to explain what I'm trying to get to. Yeah. So we're having a lot of fun with this project. So our secret project.
Okay, folks. Well, this has been a good discussion. I've learned a lot of things tonight, and I got to try to remember it all in this old brain because I'm coloring Divinity number 4 right now as we speak. So I'll be using all kinds of new tricks, I guess. So as we wrap up tonight,
one thing about coloring is you have to be observant. So observe your surroundings and your environments to see how things work. And it's the same thing with penciling, the same thing with inking.
Colors you think you see, but you don't. So.
That's right. And it's also very interesting to see that's a green. And then if you actually go and pick the color picker, it's like, wait, that's like a yellow gray color?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I've done that too. Where I think it's
if you figure out your contrasting colors, you can have some really interesting stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's so many times I've looked at a comic page and picked the color because it looks that's a cool gray, and then I'll pick it and it's purple.
Yep. So like as a colorist, here's something like if you look at my wonderful visage here, you can see that there's a highlight here on my head, right? So you think about this kind of thing. Okay, that's a hard light, and then you look at this is more of a yellow on my red, but this is yellow, and this is red, and then in between you got kind of like this possibly purplish, right? So you got to think of those kinds of things and say, okay, how do I make this happen, right? And if you look at Rob looks much more yellowish when he has the green and the yellow, and so So think about it as a unit and figure out how to make your colors work. So
Any words of wisdom?
Thank you very
Mickey?
much.
No, just look at samples.
I
just got into coloring on Procreate, and I've always liked watercolor. My sister's good at it, So that's my next thing to tackle is got to get better than my sister.
Oh,
I use Procreate.
Having
I use
competition is
Procreate, and
good.
I love it. The
I'm
only thing
going to throw one more. Well, go
the
ahead.
only thing I miss about Procreate is that it doesn't have, you can't lay a gradient shield down on it.
Right.
You know, like make a triangular shape where it's coming in the window and you're throwing a gradation.
Well, that's why you
It
export a
doesn't have
PSB, take it into Photoshop and add it. That's what I've been doing, going back and forth between watercoloring there, bringing it back into Photoshop, and then doing the stuff that I can't do in Procreate, and go back
But I
and
do
forth.
love Procreate.
So,
Right. Anything else, anybody?
Yeah, I was just going to throw in this one last tidbit. Especially if you have computer coloring, because it doesn't matter. Make mistakes. Make as many mistakes as you can, and then build off of it and figure out, okay, how does this work? Like, and just try stuff, and use filters, use overlays, use
Most techniques start
screens.
out as a mistake.
Try everything and see what
Hard
works
lights,
for you,
thin
and
lights.
just throw colors on, like, and then pick like the weirdest colors that you could possibly think of and throw them beside each other and see what happens, and then throw another color on, and like just.
It's the great advantage of doing it digitally.
Yeah.
Is you can play around as much as you want, and you don't have to crumple it up and throw it away and do it again.
Yep.
If you make a bad mistake.
Yeah.
But
Just delete the later and start over.
Yeah.
But going old school, like I just bought
interesting techniques
watercolor.
start out as a mistake. Yeah.
I just bought watercolor paper to go old school because I'm kind of getting tired of digital. I don't have nothing in my hands, so I've kind of gone back to traditional inking and going to start watercoloring on traditional, then bring it in and just adjust it in Photoshop.
Yep.
There you go.
I do that a lot.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
now,
we're gonna wrap up.
Go ahead.
I says we're going to wrap it up, but if you have something to say.
No, we're good.
Okay, it's 8:30, so my time. So we're going to wrap it up. And as we all like to say here in Silverline land, make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline.
Hi, my name is Paul Kupperberg. Make mine Silverline.